Hello. Hello. Hope everyone's having a good week. I'm Hillary, founder of the FASHIONbytes platform. Thank you for tuning in to our weekly chat. Our platform was created to support and nurture creative entrepreneurs, filling in the gap between education and what happens in real life. This is our way to still connect, collaborate, and share. Just want to adjust this a little while we're waiting for Daniel to get online. For those of you who know us and possibly who don't, we usually have educational panel discussion focused on running your fashion business or your creative business with industry experts. It's important to understand the various components involved in running a business, which a lot of people like the idea of working for themselves and not having a boss. But there's a lot of hats you need to wear on a daily basis. It could be the financial side, general admin, PR and marketing, to taking out the bin. There's a lot to do while running your own business, and obviously self-care and your mental health is also a huge part of running your business effectively as well. For those of you who've missed any of our previous chats, be sure to tune in weekly, and you can always catch up on IGTV online. We're just waiting for him to come on now. Hello.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be with you this evening.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being with us.
You're welcome.
We're really excited and pleased to have fashion designer Daniel Blake with us today. Welcome.
Thanks.
Daniel, if you could please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. So, yeah, my name is Daniel Blake. I'm a fashion designer and tailor. I also lecture on bespoke tailoring on the design process at the London College of Fashion. Part of UAL, and I've been there for many years, but I've had my own brand, Daniel Blake, now for, well, coming up for 2 decades. So yeah, it seems like a long time now. I've been working in the industry for quite some years,
Yes.
and have a little bit of experience. So I've worked with some bigger international brands prior to setting up my brand, Maximara, and then some smaller independent UK-based companies as well, who also were kind of located internationally. So yeah, I'm
Okay.
really excited to be with you all here this evening.
Okay. Thank you very much. Great. So let's start from the very beginning. So while growing up, were you always creative? Were you surrounded by creative people? How did you know you wanted this was it for you,
I
being a
think,
designer?
yeah, I think Hillary. So for me, I was one of those unusual guys who, from quite an early age, I really had a sense of kind of knowing what I wanted to do. But even before I kind of worked that out, and even worked out maybe what a fashion designer was, or that was even a kind of a path that I was able to follow creatively, I was always quite creative as a kid growing up. I loved making things. And so I was really fortunate. My mum, when I was young, growing up, she's an interior designer by trade, and herself she's quite creative, very hands-on. So she was often making things, and whether it would be clothes or renovating an old building or decorating, or a very kind of practical but also a creative thinker. And I think that really influenced me in my early years. So that innate gift within me had the opportunity, I guess, to be kind of unlocked in those early
Right.
years. And I think it was through kind of observing a lot of that in a way that actually inspired me to also kind of nurture that creativity. My stepfather also was a textile designer. And
Oh,
so,
wow.
kind of later on in my kind of early life, as it were, I was also exposed to that side of the industry, I guess from the age of like 10, 11, and had the opportunity to see kind of the design and the manufacturing process of fabrics and things as well. So I guess from an early age, I had that sense of yeah, wanting to do something within the fashion industry, and then later on, like pursued some things a bit more proactively through kind of work placements and that kind of thing.
Okay, okay,
Yeah,
great, great. Now I know that you trained at Kingston,
that's
and
correct. Yeah.
then from there you are designing for Max Mara Group, which I think is amazing and incredible. How did that happen? Was it during studying or after graduation? How did that connection take place?
Sure. So that was it was after graduation, but I was really fortunate to get a place at the at Kingston at the university and stuff there. Again, I had a kind of a sense that that was where I wanted to go, and
Mhm.
I was also fortunate at the time that the head of the course. The year I signed up, he was also the one of the kind of creative directors of the Max Mara group. So he kind of
Okay.
split his role. He was kind of partly based in Italy, designing the collection and things there for the Max Mara group. But then he also oversaw the course at Kingston. And after a number of years, actually, initially working, so I think I worked for another brand, Sarah Sturgeon, for about 4 years before being introduced to Max Mara. But when I left Sarah and then kind of started to explore some other things, I was kind of invited to apply for a role at the Max Mara group, which I then did, and so I was able then to work with them for about 2 years, so on 4 collections. So that was a really great experience working for one of
Okay.
their subsidiary brands. So Max Mara is a huge kind of
Yeah.
corporation, I guess, in many respects, and they have many brands under the kind of the main umbrella brand of Max Mara as well.
Okay.
So yeah.
How did you develop your style or your niche as a designer?
As an independent designer. So I worked for Max Mara for 2 years,
Mhm.
having worked previously for another designer for 4 years. And then I did also some other consultancy work. And I guess it was about 7 years into my career that I then decided to set up my brand, that opportunity, I guess, arose and came up. So it was out of
Mhm.
that I then kind of yeah, developed that opportunity. In terms of style and things, I think that's something that evolved with time, so it wasn't something that I completely set upon straight away.
Right.
I've always had quite a strong sense of what I've appreciated and what I've liked as a designer.
Oh, I think we're gonna wait for him to come back a little
Still
bit with
there.
technical.
My
There
phone
we go.
cut out. I don't
Yes.
know what happened. So my phone cut out.
That's
So I've always had quite a strong sense of what I've really appreciated, and so I think with the kind of the history of working with some of those brands, it helped me also to develop that further in terms of my
okay.
own kind of aesthetic. And I think that's something that's really still evolving, really, in many respects. So it's not necessarily kind of set, I'd say. I
Hmm.
think that in many respects, an aesthetic is something that continues to evolve for any designer, however young
Okay.
or old you are. But I think that sense of confidence in being able to make decisions of what you appreciate, what you really like, those certainly were embedded in me through my early career, I think.
Right.
And then
Okay.
you grow in confidence in being able to put that aesthetic out to your market. Yeah.
Right. Right. But you mentioned an opportunity came up for you to launch your own business. What was that, or can you share that? What's the inspiration behind your own brand?
Sure. So my contract at Max Mara kind of came to an end. I did 4 collections with them, and I was kind of at a bit of a crossroads. And at that point, it was either I could then apply for maybe other roles within the context of kind of the luxury kind of, I guess, super brands, having had some experience at that level, or to kind of reflect back on some of my earlier experience where I'd worked for a much smaller company and had developed quite a few contacts, you know, through production and the manufacturing process and things, and with pattern cutters, all based in London, the majority of them. And at the time, I thought, actually, you know what? I've always really like aspired to wanting to maybe do my own collection, but never really thought that was a possibility. And then suddenly this opportunity arose. And as I started to explore and have conversations with people, potential financiers, thinking about kind of raising investment, writing a business plan, thinking about manufacturing and who would actually be able to do that, because obviously you can produce a sample collection, but the big thing is actually being able to make it and deliver it to clients. So when I started to pursue and have those conversations with some of my contacts, it kind of transpired that perhaps this was a possibility. And so I guess at that point I had to make a decision and go, right, well, maybe now is the time to really go for this. And that's what I decided to do at that point. And in many respects, you know, although things have evolved and changed and continue to do so, especially given the current kind of climate that we're in, actually, I've been really fortunate. I've been able to continue to pursue that and dovetail that very often alongside kind of teaching and being involved in education, which I also really enjoy. So that's been a real blessing, I would say.
Yeah. Now it's quite rare that a creative or a designer learns how to be in business before actually doing it and going for it. What surprised you the most while building your business and going through that process?
I think I was really fortunate in my first job. Like I mentioned, I worked for a designer called Sarah Sturgeon for 4 years as her kind of design assistant, but it was a really small team, and I was exposed to I would say all aspects of the industry, of the business, in that role. So not only was I kind of an assistant designer and working on, you know, developing the new collection, I would say that was probably only about 5% of my role, because so much of my time was also spent working with manufacturers, speaking to the retailers that we were selling to at the time, learning about wholesale, how that worked, how that kind of whole supply chain operated, sourcing kind of suppliers, all of those things. And then also I was involved in kind of being able to help to set up kind of retail ventures and things as well. So there was like a whole succession of different things that I got to explore. And one of the things in that role is I discovered actually I really quite like selling and working with clients and buyers. And not all designers do like that part of the process. Very often they're happy to sit behind the desk or work, you know, in the studio. And then when it comes to sales, they want to take a back seat. Whereas actually I really thrived, I found, on being in front of the buyers and presenting products and, you know, showcasing ideas to them. And that was something that I really enjoyed doing. And I think that gave me the confidence then to kind of make that decision, because as a small design team, if you are setting up something and you don't have the big backing of, you know, a sales force and a PR company and all those other things that kind of bolt onto a business, you've got to do that yourself, be willing to do it. And I think it gave me the confidence to be able to make that step, because, yeah, I still enjoy that. I still love working with buyers now and seeing clients try things on and their reaction and how we can work and develop products. So I think that was something that I really discovered in those early years, which I didn't really know was there, you know. But I think it's an essential part of being able to establish a brand, because if you can't sell, you can't produce. So that's
Correct.
key. Yeah.
Correct. Now I can see that your designs are understated elegance.
Okay.
Would you say you also design for longevity?
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's always been something that has kind of hallmarked what I do, I think. Sometimes people would use the word, you know, timeless, classics with a twist. I mean, they're all kind of those umbrella descriptors, which sometimes I don't always like and I like to shy away from. But I guess the reality is that is what I'm good at doing. And yeah, we have pieces within the collection which, you know, kind of we worked on them initially about 10 years ago, but they're still very much a part of what we present and what we sell, because they are those classics, but you know, we get to reinvent them with new fabrication, new ways of styling those things. But I think more and more, as we know, with sustainability being so much more kind of important on the fashion agenda, it kind of ticks that box in a very real way. You know, it's not a tagline. Actually, it's a
Right.
reality. And, you know, I have clients that maybe, you know, have a piece they bought 10, 15 years ago from me, and they still have it within their wardrobe. And for me,
Amazing.
that's really great. You know, and I guess as an individual as well, myself, that's kind of how I dress as well. You know, I have pieces that I've picked up years ago, and they are still some of my favorite things. And I think for me, it's not about throwaway fashion. It is about kind of sustainable, crafted, well designed, well thought out pieces that people want to keep. They would perhaps even want to pass it on to a child, a grandchild, a cousin. Do you know what I mean, or a friend?
Yeah.
So yeah, that whole thing of longevity is really important to me.
Okay. And also, your garments are designed and made in Britain.
Correct. Yeah.
Do you find that people actually care that it's made in Britain?
I think there is. I think initially when I launched, probably not so much. I think, you know, back then a lot of manufacturers were making overseas. In fact, I'd say it was almost a trend that you were making offshore, and very
Right.
few people when I started out were making in the UK. I think that's changing now, which is encouraging and about time, because we're losing skills. But I think people more and more are interested in that, definitely. And I think certainly right now, as we go through
Mhm.
this huge kind of global shift, we need to be much more um, uh, kind of forward thinking, and in terms of you know, really regathering, regrouping our skills, and educating the kind of next generation of makers, not only designers but actual physical makers. And I think you may be someone who's interested in fashion, but you might not be a designer, but actually you
Right.
may love making, and we need great makers, you know. And
Mhm.
we've lost a lot of that heritage. But I think, you know, there are people who are gifted in that way, and so I would love to see more of that happening in the future.
And that would lead to the transparent supply chain, because I think that's important when you link that to sustainability and conscious consumerism.
Definitely, you know, kind of letting your customers know exactly where things are from, and not just making a story out of it for the sake of it. Actually, this is you know, this is the reality of what we're doing. And you know, for many years, or the majority of my production has always been not only made in the UK but made in London. So in a
Wow.
really kind of local way, using local
Mhm.
skilled people, but being really involved in that process. And the same with fabrication and things. We look to try to source as much as possible from the UK where we can, using things like Harris tweed or Irish linens and things like that as well, so that it's I guess a British product
Oh, I think
ultimately,
he's
but
cutting
it
out.
has a much broader appeal in terms of who maybe purchases the product. So yeah.
No. So you would probably agree that this is the perfect opportunity for fashion to slow down.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think I myself have slowed down through this whole process as well. You know, we've had to. And that has been, you know, in many respects, that's hard in the fashion industry because it is such a treadmill industry. You know, there is a risk that sometimes, and
Yeah.
I know at various points in my career, I felt like a bit of a hamster on a wheel, you know, just going from the
Mhm.
next collection to the next collection, churning out ideas. But what has been really good, I think, in my kind of more recent journey is that ability to look back through the archive, reflect on what we've really developed, and tease out those really kind of exciting things that still have life in them. Because, you know,
Yeah.
I I I I get frustrated when I think, you know, we've just got to move to the next thing all the time. actually there is a lot of value in maybe reflecting and looking back. And I think absolutely this has been an opportunity, a great opportunity to be able to do that through this kind of lockdown period where things have just slowed down.
Yes, yes. With this current situation, has it changed the way you look at your own business?
Definitely. And I'm always kind of thinking about, next steps, I guess, in a way. I guess as a designer, an ideas person, I have a tendency sometimes to get bored as well. I want to do things differently. I like doing things differently. And I think for me, again, it's a natural kind of time to kind of reflect and think, what's really important. But I think actually, in many respects, Daniel Blake was already doing things that quite a lot of people are already talking about. Now they're talking about, much more localized making, people wanting to buy more locally, wanting to interact much more with purchasing products. We've been doing that for the last 5-8 years, with lots of our kind of pop-up events and taking product to clients. But I think what's changing for me now is thinking about, and obviously kind of having majored in tailoring and selling to a lot of business women, actually how are we going to dress differently for business, as we come out of that. And that will change. I've been wearing, t-shirts and, jeans and stuff for literally the last 6 months. Right. I've rarely even put on a structured jacket, like at all. So how, might, that affect kind of structured tailoring? How do we need to think about tailoring for the future? What is it that will be very different? I think those are the questions that I'm really asking kind of more of right now.
Okay. Are you finding that you need to communicate even more with your loyal client base?
I took a bit of a step back in a way because I have 3 kids as well, primary school age, and we were homeschooling. We've been really busy also with online teaching. And that kind of transition. So in a way, and lots of people kind of, I think, went into panic mode a little bit and were like bombarding at the beginning with social media and stuff. And I don't know, maybe I'm just a bit of a nerd as well when it comes to that kind of stuff. So, but I think absolutely we definitely need to think about how to communicate this transition phase. I think that's important. And also, I've been asking my clients questions, starting to ask them, so what is it? What will you be wearing? What do you think you might be wearing? Or maybe how have you been wearing Daniel Blake during this lockdown period? Which pieces have you still kind of worn as you've been sitting at your computer much more in front of on a Zoom call or whatever? And for me, that's an interesting conversation to be having. Absolutely. So I think it's a shift to communication, almost that sense of collaborative discussion around, about dressing habits and how maybe those things are changing.
Okay. No, that makes total sense, because everyone likes to be involved and kind of a part of your experience.
Yeah, and absolutely. I've never really felt like I'm one of those designers that just kind of rocks up and says, right, you're going to wear this, ever. And whenever I'm working with a client, I work to try and help them to build confidence and it, encapsulate something of their personality. So if they have a favorite accessory, or they love wearing jeans, or, they want to wear a tailored jacket with, a certain kind of item that they have in their wardrobe, I'm fully open to that, So it's about making the individual feel kind of comfortable and real, I think, because clothing and dressing someone, it's a very intimate thing. And I don't think, as a brand, I'd ever want to kind of just roll in and just say, right, you've got to wear it like this. It's building that relationship, building that trust and that rapport. And that's real, that's every day. And also that's sustainable, because then you build that kind of sense of loyalty and trust, which is really important.
Excellent. Now, I saw that some time ago you did like an upcycling challenge.
Yeah.
How did that come about? And did you do others, or will possibly do others?
Yeah, I mean, that was through a local charity based in
Mhm.
Bermondsey. And in fact, we are kind of in the process of relocating our studios and stuff. So we'll be kind of working out of that space. But it's a small charity which is run locally, and they approached me and said, would I be involved? Happy to be involved in a kind of an upcycling project to help to kind of spearhead that. And I'm absolutely, supportive of anything. And when it comes to kind of thinking about environmental impacts and things as well, but also encouraging local creativity. And that project is also was about maybe kind of drawing in young people that perhaps are unskilled as well, and they could use upcycled materials or to create something new and explore different ideas and stuff. And so that was a great opportunity to just encourage as well some other people in their skills, in their journey. And many people have helped me with that along the way. And so I just felt like that was something really positive to be involved in. And whether or not we'll do something else like that again in the future, I'm not sure right now, but it's certainly something that we would consider. And maybe thinking about how potentially our clients could almost upcycle some of their previous pieces that they've
Right.
had from us, and kind of think about breathing new life into those things as well. And how you could
Mhm.
do that in a way which is not going to be kind of really expensive, but also kind of updates a piece, whether it's just changing the buttons or kind of styling it in a slightly different way. Those perhaps are things that we should also be thinking about.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. I know that it's been not a normal time or whatever, but we do need to look ahead a little
Yeah.
bit. So I'm just thinking, new collection potentially soon.
Yeah. So we actually had a
Yeah.
whole, we had pieces on the rail in March, patterns
Yeah.
there, toiles and samples that we were busy working on, and then literally everything, obviously, as we know, just shut down. We weren't able to kind of access our studio for quite some time. And so now that move has just taken place. So we're literally in the process of kind of kickstarting, pressing the play button again after this long pause. So
Mhm.
absolutely, we're very much excited and looking forward to that. So I think obviously it will be kind of October into November when we start to release some of those new things. And also
Okay.
thinking, about the change of season, because obviously initially that was going to be a spring summer collection. Now we're going to be well
Yeah.
into winter and things. But it's a great opportunity for us as well to kind of rethink and think creatively about the next steps. And for me, I find that inspiring because, like I say, I quite like change. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, it's an exciting time in a way as well to be able to be thinking differently
Right.
as well.
Okay. Okay. Excellent. Now, I know you're a lecturer as well. So with that hat on,
Yeah.
um, what do you have any wise words for the class of 2020 creatives coming out, not to be disheartened in a way, and
Sure.
to move forward? Yeah.
So, absolutely. I think, we are not in control of our destinies, any of us.
Mhm.
We don't know what the future holds. We don't have those kind of crystal balls. And I think that's probably a good thing.
Mhm.
But I'm a strong believer that actually, if you put in the work and if you genuinely are passionate and you have a love of kind of creativity and fashion, then opportunities open up. And they don't always open up maybe in the way that you would anticipate. Sometimes you might end up following a different route. It could be that you've trained in, women's wear and you actually end up going to costume or TV. It could be that you've trained in menswear and perhaps you end up working for a shoe brand or something. Um,
Yeah.
that doesn't matter as long as you feel kind of fulfilled within the context of what you're doing, and I think more importantly that you're able to contribute to whatever business or a kind of brand you're feeding into. And actually I would just say, be open, maybe widen your net. Don't be too narrow, in terms of your kind of selection, thinking I only want to do this. Because
Yeah.
initially get the experience, be a part of a team, learn about kind of how to work within the context of a team, and that kind of collaborative opportunity, because those skills are like fundamental to business. And I think that if you have any of those kinds of opportunities, and even if they are only kind of loosely linked to fashion in a way, then go for it, because you can build on those things and those skills will be with you forever. You know, there are things that I learned in my first job that I still reflect on now, 25 years later. So
Yeah.
just be, positive about it. And I know, yeah, it is tough. And there are lots of negative messages out there at the moment. If you watch the news every night, it's so depressing.
Oh, yes.
But as creatives, we are pioneers. We can think in a way maybe that other people don't, because we're always looking for solutions. And so I'm always like I'm always a can-do person in terms of making and practicality. We can do things, and do things differently, and that in itself could then generate and spark kind of new ways of working for the future. And it's really imperative that the new generation are part of that, because they are going to form the next generation of designers. So I would implore you to be part of that conversation, to contribute, and also to be confident about what you bring to the table, because there are so many skills that you young guys have that I don't have, whether it be IT or digitally savvy, all of those things that are so important, more important now, in kind of a brand being sustainable for the future. And we need you guys to be part of that conversation.
Perfect. Thank you very much. See, that 30 minutes was quick.
It goes by in a flash.
It goes by. Thanks. Thank you so much. Thanks again for spending this time with us today. Thank you.
You're really welcome. And thank you, Hilary, so much for inviting me.
No problem. Thanks very much for tuning in. Join us again next week. Our guest will be Fiona Minute, telling us how to boss our PR. So until then, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
See you. Bye.
Bye.